I haven't got a clue. I don't know what all that means. There is no square root of -1 as far as I understood, right? Imaginary. Yeah. So already, so numbers are already imaginary, and then there's imaginary squared numbers. Like, it's all imagination. I believe that quantum mechanics is describing, I don't know, just pure thought. It's pure imagination. It's not connected to the physical realm at all. It's just all mathematically based, a fiction in someone's head. It's like, so I guess it's like having the number line and then just putting another, like making a Cartesian grid out of it, right? Making another number line that's perpendicular to the other number line, and just say that that has meaning somehow, that's representing something. But all numbers are just placeholders, basically. A number is just a placeholder. It doesn't really mean quantity. It's just, it registers distinction. One is distinct from two in some way. In the most basic way of expressing, of understanding a number, I think a number is just a distinction, a placeholder where something's different than the other thing. See, the zero doesn't represent nothing. Zero is actually meant to represent singularity. So there, yeah. It's just that the entire idea of quantity is incorrect. The quantity is meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. It's just, yeah. And then but I think from mathematicians' perspective, zero is 1 minus 1. Zero doesn't stand alone. You have to derive nothing from something, right? That's what nothing is. Nothing is the arising and passing of a thing. So you have to, that's mathematics. They start with 1 as the positive, and that's the given. And then you have to invent subtraction to get to 0. So they create 0, nothing, through a process of first just magically saying that there's 1, and then through addition, and then you have to subtract 1 to get to 0. So 0 isn't the starting place. 0 is derived through some sort of a process, mathematical process of addition, then subtraction. So when you realize that 0 is the fundamental singularity, then the isn't just the removal of the positive. The minus means what it really means, and that's the other of, right? The state of superposition. So the minus isn't other than, like, it's not the subtraction, it's not the removal of positive. It's the convex to the concave. It's other of. So the entire addition and subtraction mechanism is incorrect because quantity is incorrect. It's but math makes it makes technology, and it develops pretty patterns for mathematicians to keep them interested. So therefore math works, right? It's correct because it does these things, right? It keeps mathematicians occupied and it creates technology. So therefore it's correct. That's not right. There's one thing, right? There's singularity, and that's represented by a circle. So 0 is representing singularity, which is the potential for duality and then plurality. So singularity is the potential for duality and then plurality, right? So 0 represents not a lack, but potential. See? So you cannot not exist. So if we were taught this in school or in the church or wherever, taught through some institution or something, we were taught this, there would be no fear of death, because the thought of non-existence is abhorrent. It's self rejects the idea that there is non-existence, that it can't exist, because it's so incorrect. You just cannot not exist. So fear of death would be removed if we were taught my triune system, because it shows that you cannot not exist. There's no such thing as nothingness. There's things and non-things and potential. And what manifests the potential is the bias of a measurement. So it's like saying, so curve is the potential for concave and convex. You can't draw just a convex line, right? So try to draw a convex line without drawing a concave line. That's the conundrum that thing and nothing is, right? You see this? Just dwell on that for yourself till you realize that that's the same situation. Is the thing nothing model is trying to create convex without creating concave. Right? It's ridiculous. And this is basically entanglement too, because you can't draw just a concave. So if a person is instructed to create convex, then immediately, instantaneously, you know that it is also creating concave and also curve. So, but if you draw, and the opposite is true, right? If you draw convex, then it's got, it's also drawing concave, and it's also drawing curve. So whether you draw concave or convex, you're always drawing curve. And whether you're drawing both concave and convex at the same time, right? So this is, in a way, this is explaining through metaphor entanglement. But if you are instructed to draw curve, then you can draw curve without referencing concave and convex at all, right? Curve stands alone. So when you draw a curve, you're automatically drawing concave and convex as well. But it's not stated. You don't have to state concave and convex at all because it's just curve. So here's an interesting thing. Con, right? Con, the prefix means to connect. So the con is the con is the root word of convex and concave, isn't it? So they introduce a force that supposedly is holding the concave and the convex together. You see how this is so weird? But it's a fundamental state of curve, right? It just naturally arises with the state of curve. So the potential for concave and convex is contained within curve. Curve is not the connection of concave and convex, right? This is all very subtly nuanced, and I don't know why my mind works like this, but the subtle nuances of this, the way that the thing nothing model is trying to create a Ponzi scheme where its purpose is to annihilate itself. It's always in a state of internal conflict because one half of it is the annihilation of the other half. So those are other ofs, other thans. You can't have an other than inside a system, right? So again, concave is not other than convex, it's other of curve. If you just dwell on these things and you have a logical mind, this will all make sense. And eventually you'll come to see that this is the resolution to why there is something rather than nothing, because it reveals that nothing is incorrect. Nothing, the conventional understanding of nothing, is incorrect. The thing nothing model requires the addition of a non-thing in there, which fits the triune fundamental model of reality. And the zero, right? The zero is in both the zero and the positive and the negative are in the fundamental model of reality, and that same zero is the source, is the singularity that the number system arises out of. It all ties together. And when it does, like, you just watch, you just go over it over and over and over and over it again, and finally when it does come to realization, it's just like it's the fundamental model of reality. It's this explains all of it in 3 characters: the positive, the zero, and the negative, looked at in conjunction with the other fundamental models of reality, the other fractals, holographic expressions of that same information. Put that in conjunction with each other, and that's it. How the singularity is the potential that isn't nothing, and how it's the potential for the duality to arise from the singularity through language, the bias of language. So you measure the concave, you're automatically creating the convex. You got that, right? It's not just metaphor. It's this is it. Like it makes perfect sense to me. And I really don't think it's that complicated. Like you just follow the reasoning, and it doesn't take 4 years of schooling to memorize this system and learn how it operates. It just seems to me like this is the way it is. Everything, see, everyone is making an incorrect assumption at the very heart of mathematics, at the very heart of language itself, right? We just have assumed that it's complete, and that the language that is available is adequate to explain our direct experience, but it isn't. The language is there, and it's blocking the ability to describe human experience, because materialists just want to have it to be things. They just want that which physics can describe to be the only reality that's even possible, right? Because if it's not a thing that can be described by physics or detected in physical detecting devices, then it simply cannot exist, because it's just nothing, right? So that's where everything that's subjective, they just rule that out. It can't possibly exist because there's no category to even begin the conversation, right? In that model, it's just nothing. If we can't describe it by physics, then it doesn't exist. So that includes emotions, thoughts, any type of subjective experience that physics cannot detect in their machines. Then they just throw that out as an epiphenomenon. It doesn't really exist. It's an illusion. Yeah, it's an illusion, but so is all the physical shit. So I've fixed the language. There's no longer that blockage. There's now a category called non-things that isn't the annihilation, isn't the annihilation of a thing. It's just a phenomenon that exists that cannot be described by physics. That's what it is. That's what a non-thing is. It's a phenomenon that exists, that within human experience, that we experience, that physics can't describe. And so that gets rid of the thing nothing problem. Solution seeker, hi. I just went over the whole thing again. The thing nothing Kobayashi Maru situation. Yeah, particle wave function is the same. It's you have to forget, you have to just remember that it's all metaphor. It's all metaphor. So wave is the same as mind, which is the same as the negative. And particle is the same as positive and yang. Right. So it's all that in the fundamental model of reality, each one of those triune lines, right, system is a holographic expression of the same information, right? It's the same information. It's basically just saying Tao, 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 or the observer, or, that which the middle column. The middle column is the reality, the singularity, and the duality arises, which is the positive and the negative, from the potential. That's the singularity, which is the middle, right? So the middle used to have, it doesn't have nothing in it, right? It's life, it's God, it's potential. It's not the lack of a positive thing. And the negative isn't the removal or the opposite of the positive. It's the other side, just like the concave is the other side of curve to convex. It's a state of superposition. If you just understand that reality is the state of superposition itself, which is singularity, the one, and then the duality comes out of that. The appearance of the duality comes out of the bias of language. And the way to experience the singularity is to remain thought-free, right? Not to have any bias. So not to superimpose language over top of the singularity that projects the illusion of duality. So just find that stillness between the thoughts, and that's the actual direct experience of the unity, of the field of potential, the field of senses that's around you the whole time. So you can't unify two illusions to try to cancel each other out to find the reality. It doesn't work that way. You have to be prior to the illusions. You have to recognize that which is prior to the duality, prior to the illusion arising. So, and that's what subtraction tries to do, right? It tries to get back to the singularity, to the reality, to the source, which is the circle, the zero, by removing the initial incorrect addition. They're trying to erase one illusion, cancel it out with another illusion, but that just keeps projecting the illusion. So you have to recognize what's prior to all those thoughts arising, basically. Yeah, Maharaj, yeah. there's something prior to consciousness, he said, right? So and consciousness is awareness of something. So the awareness is actually prior to consciousness, which is consciousness is aware of something. And then if you're aware of something, you can put a name on, you can superimpose a word over top of that sensation, and then you've got individually the appearance of separately existing objects. But without any thoughts, there is just a field of potential objects. And I think it's easy for people to just shrug all this language play and the importance of the influence that language has upon us. This is the language at the deepest heart of human psyche and consciousness. So this thing nothing model that is generating its own purpose by constant internal conflict. Well, all of Western society is built on this, isn't it? Right? And the governmental system, it's turning out it's not functioning as it was intended to, because it was always based on competition, right? So one half of the system is trying to beat the other half of the system all the time. That's what gives it its energy. So eventually what happens is that it turns all of its energy into that, right? So it's lost its motivation. It doesn't have its true motivation. It's kind of artificially implanted in there that the energy that gets you up to keep this thing going is internal conflict. But now it's got confused, and all it does now is internal conflict, right? Because it was a Ponzi scheme to begin with. So now all it's doing is internally conflict within itself, and it's no longer functioning as anything else, but just trying to beat itself, because it's lost its way in a way of speaking. The source, the purpose of the system is not to beat half of the fucking system, right? The purpose of a system itself is to do something else rather than just trying to fight within itself. It doesn't make sense. So that's what I call the other than model. Everything's built on the other than, right? The Democrats are that system. They're in conflict with each other. So an other of system is like the concave and the convex. They're mutually dependent upon each other. You can't have one without the other, but they're not in conflict with each other. They're just the other half of the system. And they're always in perfect symbiosis. They're not in conflict at all. It's an illusion to see that which makes the world go around as competition. That's incorrect. That's incomplete. It's incorrect because of the incomplete view that the thing nothing model provides. It's all language, right? People don't understand the place that language and the limits of language have to do with the problem. The problem is a problem with language. The evolution of the language is not kept up with the actual evolution of human experience, advancing to higher levels of self-awareness. So we know we're not the body, but that part of the ego that wants to hold on and believe that self is the body, that's the materialist thing, right? That's the whole thing. The thing nothing model defends the fundamental level that thing that materialists believe physical objects are, right? So, yeah, it's, but now we know humans experience phenomena that aren't physical in nature, right? We have emotions and thoughts and feelings and stuff. So the language now has finally, with my model, the language has finally evolved to include these non things, the subjective experience of humanity. Like, right, there hasn't even been language until I fixed it that provides a category that represents that which physics cannot describe, the entire subjective human experience. So this is where the mind body problem, the people come in and there's no self and consciousness is an illusion and all this fucking nonsense. It's because of the Kobayashi Maru situation. They won't fix it using the current belief that there's such a thing as a nothing. Ah, right. Like it seems to me like this is reasoning that just somehow supports itself. I don't know. It just seems like, how can people not see what the fuck I'm saying? I just don't understand. It's fear. They don't want to get into it. They don't want to start trying to figure it out, because once they figure it out, it'll destroy their entire fucking worldview. So it's just a cursory understanding. It's just the words, and they're not working on it. They're not trying to think and understand the words that I'm saying. Peter, I don't have a schedule. It's not like I show up at 10 all the time. I got to keep you guys hanging, right? Always keep them wanting more. Keep them on edge. So this morning I was writing more about this thing nothing problem, right? And I'm trying to make it so logical and reasonable that it contains its own logic and that you can't escape the logic. Yeah. It's again, I think the best way to describe it is so the free will is the free will to temporarily forget the self for a while. Take it to be something other than it actually is. And that's play, right? So a person who's playing a sport or a kid that's playing make believe, reality is suspended, right? Like in a sport, all you're engaged in is the sport and the rules of the game. You've forgotten your normal life and your life. The purpose of your life at that moment is to play the game. So it just so happens that life itself is that situation. Life is the waking state itself is the game. And I believe that the fundamental level of choice is you can choose to play the game or not play the game. Yeah, so the salvia experience, I believe that whatever the wave function is describing, it has to be in some way a part of our experience. So it came to me after my salvia experience and also from my understanding of quantum mechanics that subatomic particles are just like pixels on a 2D screen, except you just imagine this as a 3D screen or a 4D screen. And the subatomic particle pops in to reality. It's not pops into this realm, just as a pixel on a screen turns on, okay? And then the subatomic particle pops out and disappears, like and annihilates itself, just like a pixel turns off. So the way a screen works, the is that all turns on and off simultaneously in a given sequence to make it appear as though there's in that there's a causal relationship to the images on the screen, right? A car appears to crash into another car on a screen, and it appears as though the causal relationship is just like it is here, but it isn't, right? There are no individual objects on a screen. It's all just an illusion by the order, the sequence, and the order in which the pixels are flashing on and off gives the illusion of all that stuff, right? Of individual objects having a causal relationship on the screen with each other. But it's deeper than that. So that's what's going on in this realm. The subatomic particles are the pixels. They're flat, they're not, there's nothing moving. There's just flashing on, popping in, popping out, popping in, popping out at a given the information on the wave that's hitting the back of the screen. So salvia, I believe, tweaks the nervous system in such a way that it has direct experience of the information wave that's hitting the back of this fucking 3D screen. It's because first of all, there's a heavy experience of waves, of a frequency. Woo, 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 woo. Like, but it's not just a sound or something. It's time and space itself, right? That's doing this. So it seems as though you're looking behind the screen, and this is turned somehow. removed a dimension, and you can see behind this fourth dimension. You can see behind the third dimension, I guess, into the fourth dimension, which is time. So this is where I really believe, and this is where I was talking with Federico about how the universe on the quantum level is all around. The wave function is just everything all at once. That's what it is. It's just everything arising all at once. But the nervous system of the senses, I believe, can't. If you single out certain senses, then that. Anyway, I believe that salvia makes it possible for the nervous system to pick up the wave function. That's what I think. More analog than digital. Yes, but that's what I'm saying, is that this is the analog. The wave, when you're on salvia, you don't have a linear causal effect. You have everything arising at once. Everything arising at once, passing away at once. Arising at once, passing away at once. At a certain frequency. So I think it has heavily time involved. It removes time. Yeah. So you're never the same, right? Because you see the illusion. The illusion is just laid bare before you, like as an actual sensual experience. And there's no words to describe that when you come back from it, right? You can't describe what the fuck you're seeing and experiencing. So most people like drool and roll around on the ground and bark like a dog or something. So in one way, I think that the senses are projecting the world, right? So there isn't a world out there the senses are detecting. The senses are actually the world. The senses are projecting the world. So I think that maybe salvia reveals that reversal causal reaction, right? So it actually shows how the world is not apart from the senses, right? Because the normal perspective of looking at it, it seems as though we are detecting a world that's out there. But I think salvia turns that around and says, no, look at how the senses are projecting the world. And then you try to process that for months and months and months and years later. Yeah, the senses create the world. The senses project the world. The senses are not detecting the world. Yeah. And the body is one of these tools that isn't really detecting, it's projecting. But the body is part of the projection simultaneously as well. Yeah, if the senses are projecting the world, then there's no force. Like the senses are the force, right? There is no separation between the object and the appearance of the object in a way. You know what I mean? There's no need to attribute some sort of force to the actions of the universe, because the actions of the universe are exactly the senses. And in a way that erases the need for time too, doesn't it? If the senses, if the world is exactly the senses. Yeah, and the final obstruction is the disbelief that you God. It's just like the disbelief that is the disbelief that is holding people back from seeing what we are trying to reveal to them, what the actual, that this is true, that these are actually messages, and this is the fundamental model of reality, and it can't get any more succinct, and this is it, right? Just the disbelief that an ex-wildland firefighter and some other couple of dudes, just an ordinary average people using ordinary average, just ordinary language, can come to the final concluding theory, right? It's just complete. It's the immensity and the enormity and the repercussions of this that we're showing people is too big, right? They just can't accept that all of math is wrong because it's just too outlandish, right? It's like saying you're God. It's like, yeah, right. Yeah, sure, I'm God, right? You're a fucking crackpot. You're insane, right? It's like, no, well, then you will not recognize it. If you don't believe that it's possible that an ex-wildland firefighter can find the fundamental model of reality and develop the final concluding truth, then that belief will prevent you from recognizing that truth. And I get it. Like, I'm the one that's had to come to realize that it is what it is, regardless of that I'm just me. Yeah, so disbelief, right? So the belief that there isn't a God, right? So say you're an atheist and you need to defend that atheism, then, or if that is not, you cannot sacrifice that, then you will not see what we're trying to show you, because that's the fucking message. That's the truth. The truth is that there is a transcendent creator, that this is a creation, that there is a transcendent source to all of this, and that you are it. That's the message. And if you believe that that's nonsense, then you won't see what's so obviously put forth before you. And even the belief that 1 + 1 = 2, you have to question that too. If you believe that that is immutable, written in stone fact, then you won't be able to see how it's wrong. Right. So we have to find out what we are not first, right? So we're not the thoughts and we're not the body. So anything that you could call Peter, that's not God. That's exactly what God is not, right? Which is the ego. So that's the problem of the I, right? So when people say I, they just about everyone means the ego, right? Some sort of combination of thoughts and sensations that develops into an identity, right? A separately existing I called your name here. But all that's an assumption too. So we have to look at the I as in, like, the I that you're calling your name here is the same as the I that you call a video game character, right? I'm going to go over there and kill that ogre, right? Well, you're not going to enter the fucking screen and go in there and kill the ogre, right? You mean I, the character. You're just using the word I as convenience. So that's the same thing as the I that believes that it's your name here. It's just a fucking character in a game. And you don't have much free will. The scene in that video game is going to go on, and you get to maybe move that character within certain parameters of that scene. But that's the amount of free will you have, right? The game just keeps fucking rolling. Yeah, it's an approximation, right? It's convenient to say I rather than the video game player that I am currently controlling is going to go over here. You just say I'm going over there. Knowing that it's not really you. So you just take that one step back and it just apply that to your name here. Same fucking thing. It's all fractal. But the thoughts, all those thoughts in your head, is what's convincing you that you actually are that character. That's what those thoughts in the head. I'm going to do this. All the I whatevers, I dot dot dot. Those are all trying to convince you that you, the self, is the character. Yeah. I know it's ridiculous, right? When you look at it from this perspective, you just see everyone just floundering around in ignorance, right? It's just like, oh my God, you guys, you haven't cracked the code of thought itself, right? You haven't cracked the code of language and thought, is that it's all fucking bullshit. It's all imaginary. Right? The observer, right? The author is required, but the author is not the final step in the process. It's not the final full self-awareness, is not God the creator, it's God the observer. On the seventh day, God rested. He chilled and just enjoyed witnessing the creation. So that's the highest calling, is not to create shit, because creating stuff is just a fancy way of being redundant. It's just a sneaky way, clever way of regurgitating something. That's what creation actually is. And the highest calling is to observe, is to be an unbiased witness to this wonderful creation that you've this wonderful puzzle that you've created for yourself. Refuting the external world. Yeah, but also that sounds like some sort of something that an idealist would take and run with. But we have to refute the internal world too. The subjective realm of the I is just as false and illusory as the realm of the senses. But that's what's flipping now. It's flipping to accepting the realm, the non-physical realm, the non-sensual realm of thoughts as being fundamental, rather than the sensual realm of gravity and the senses to be fundamental. So it's just the other cycle of samsara. The big yang is swinging to the big yin. Big. In a way, non-conceptualists, we refute all experience. In that, we recognize that all experience is fundamentally, inherently unsubstantial. All experience, regardless of what it is, whether it's a thought or a sensation, all consciousness, which is awareness of something, that something of which you are aware is fundamentally unsubstantial. Now, that doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means it ain't going to satisfy you. It is entertainment. All of this is entertainment. That's it. So don't take it so fucking seriously, right? Right, Paige? Paige isn't taking things so seriously.
Not today.
Not today. The more I talk about this stuff, the easier I see it. Like I just fucking, it's just so simple and easy for me to see it and understand it. But yet it just seems so nuanced at a level that it should be far easier for people to understand what I'm saying. But the Kobayashi Maru situation with the language is so subtly nuanced. It's just right. Like that's the way Maya works, is she works subtly, right? If it was overt, everyone would fucking notice, right? A magician doesn't go, oh, like I'm flipping the coins between my fingers here, look, right? It's like, whoa, look it over here, right? That's what's fucking going on. And we love it. We just like, fool us some more. Please, magician, please fool us some more. Hypnotize us and make us do ridiculous things. Keep up. Like, it just seems to me that actually pure reason. So pure reason is the innate ability for someone to fucking reason, right? To figure out, oh, this makes sense. That's it. If something makes sense to you, then it's reasonable and it's true. It's that fucking simple, right? We have to, this new inquiry that is non-conceptuality is you are the final authority on what's fucking true. You have to have faith in your own ability to reason and come up with the truth when it's provided, when it's presented to you. And this doesn't require a lot of memorization, rote memory, and fucking learning some sort of a fucking system. Truth is just, look at this, right? Truth is revealing what's false and then saying, well, just see what's true. Just look past what's false and see what's true. I don't have to teach you the truth. The falsity is that which is taught. That which is false needs to be taught. That which is true is just shown, is revealed behind the falsity. So all of language is that which is the falsity. And these messages is the use of symbol in a very specific manner to try to break consciousness out of the illusion that symbol itself creates. So that requires a lot of nuance. And it's a nuance that people haven't picked up on yet. it's almost like they've accepted, like everyone knows that the simulation, which is the training mission, the training simulation that was the Kobayashi simulation, everyone just shrugged their shoulders and basically just accepted that it was not possible to pass it, right? So it almost seemed like that's the state we're in now, is that no one really is trying or expects to come to a final concluding theory, because they've just all shrugged their shoulder. They haven't got to the depth required to fix the actual singular problem. And that singular problem is nothing, because there is no nothing, right? It's one. There's singularity, and the circle represents singularity. So I'm subtly changing the meaning of the most important symbol. I'm subtly just adapting the meaning of zero of a circle from nothing to representing singularity, and then just calling that potential, that singularity, potential for the duality to arise. What is, like, someone in grade fucking 5 can follow this, right? I believe. He arrives exactly when intended. I think something like that. So it's going to be interesting, this study course, because we're not teaching, are we? We're deprogramming, right? We're not teaching, we're showing. We're deprogramming. It's so cool. It's anti-teaching. What is that called? Anti-teaching. Deprogramming. Oh, so I haven't gotten back to how my discussion with Federico went to the general public here. It went fairly well. It went really well. It wasn't like Federico said, "Oh my God, this is it. I'm going to follow non-conceptual. I'm a non-conceptualist now, and we're going to co-write a book." It wasn't like that, because he obviously didn't get very deep into my stuff. He was a very cursory glance, like tip of the iceberg stuff. And then, so we agreed on pretty much everything, but I kept saying, dude, this is the comprehensive, like, to me, and I've seen this in just about every one of his interviews and every one of his live presentations, is that people end up taking his word for it. That's really it. At the end of it all, is that a person is not showing what I'm showing them. Like, they don't understand it for themselves, because it's very ambiguous. It's not as succinct, and all the loose edges, all the loose ends are tied together like mine. In the end, the person is not understanding this, grokking this for themselves. They're not. In the end, they're just taking his word for it. Whereas I believe my theory, people can understand it and go, I understand reality at its most fundamental level. I do. So yeah, there was pushback because he believes that he has the final theory, yet he still says, yes, I'm still working on it. There's still room for it to evolve. And then I point out some inconsistencies and shortage places where his reasoning, I don't think, followed. And I stumped him a couple of times, but he's still like, unless he really starts getting deeper into my stuff, he'll still assume that his theory is as close as you can possibly get, right? Has the most comprehensive and simple explanation for the functioning of reality, but it just isn't. It just yeah. So I don't think that you guys believe that the fundamental model of reality is exactly that, because it just is self-evident that it is, especially the zero, positive and negative of those triune systems is finally it. Symbol in its most succinct, powerful form, because it's all of reality is being expressed and described by three characters, three bits of information, if you will, three characters, three symbols. When you interpret it in conjunction with all the others, well, you're describing the meaning and reason for all of life and experience in three, right? Three symbols. So you can't get more succinct than that, right? I know, but he hasn't. He hasn't there. He said he did admit that they're both very similar. So he said that it wouldn't benefit him to go over and start supporting my theory instead of his. But I think he was saying these words from a very superficial understanding of my theory. Because once he realizes what this is, he will realize that it's even showing where that Kobayashi Maru situation is affecting his very theory, right? He hasn't fixed that problem. He hasn't recognized the triune model, and he hasn't recognized the thing nothing problem, because his theory doesn't offer any resolution to why is there something rather than nothing, and how does something come from nothing. He doesn't even mention it. There's no resolution to those things at all, right? So I don't understand. I don't see how you could have a theory of everything that explains all of reality that doesn't resolve these long-lasting problems, right? The mathematical problem, is it discovered or invented? Your theory must be able to resolve that. The resolution of that question must come about, right? It must emerge naturally from your theory. And it does in mine, right? It just does. I'm losing my shit. Not very much. See, he told me that I'm wasting my time and that physicists won't me. And yet he's trying to appeal too much, I believe, to physicists and scientists. So he doesn't really talk about suffering and happiness. But to me, that is the very guide that keeps us on the path of truth, is happiness and suffering, right? So how can you bring truth into your direct experience? How can a truth affect your reality and your experience if it doesn't relate to suffering and happiness, right? It doesn't change your life at all. This information that's true. All right, so what? A mathematical proof is fucking true. How does that change my life? How does that lessen my suffering? How does that make me happier? That knowledge is useless if it doesn't, to me, a knowledge of some understanding that doesn't lessen suffering and increase happiness, well, that's a waste. There's no purpose to it to me. Well, he wants to join science with religion, or with spirituality, sorry. But you can't. He's undergoing a mission that's as futile as trying to join quantum mechanics and gravity, because they can't be. They're both illusions. You can't join the two. So science is actually the antithesis of spirituality. So we have to see, like my model does, that science is that which projects the fucking illusion. So science is the antithesis. I'm sorry, it just is. Science is the antithesis of spirituality. So you can't merge the two. So I'm afraid that Federico, no matter how brilliant he is and how close he is, he's on a futile mission to try to join, basically, two things that can't be joined, just like quantum mechanics can't be joined with particle physics. So, I hope he sees that we have to just transcend it. This non-conceptuality is the successor to. It proves science to be wrong. It's successor to science. It destroys science. Yeah, he had an awakening where he was the observed and the observer at the same time, and he's had lots of awakening experiences, but I don't, just keeping it real, I don't believe that he abides there or has discovered that is actually your natural state, right? I think he hasn't, yeah, it's exactly it. He hasn't recognized that is the self, that or how to realize that state all the time. I don't think he's really quite found self yet, like that deep stillness, the Mona and the Satchitananda of just the perfect bliss, effortless thought-free awareness. That's the key. The key is the word effortless, right? So a person that's meditating, there's effort involved in trying to find and stay in the natural state. But once it's effortless, you can't even call it meditation anymore, right? So yeah, the one-step path, right? You have to just always, that's the number one goal, is you always are engaged in the one-step path. But it's hardcore. Yeah, he's described his awakening experience. He actually saw white light burst from, like, I believe visual white light burst from his chest and fill everything up, and he felt like he was one with the universe and all that jazz. we're gonna present to him something very, very intriguing. You guys are gonna come here, get enlightened. No pressure. No pressure on me or you guys, but you're gonna come here, get fully enlightened. We'll tell Federico that we're all fully enlightened and it's because of non-conceptuality. There you go.
Hi, Callie.
So he invited me to write up a proposal for his foundation to possibly support us, sponsor us in some manner. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'm writing up a proposal to offer, first of all, non-conceptuality as the teaching, and then here, the retreat here, 5-day retreat, to have the experience, right? So to engage in one-step path here, because he will be able to provide people who haven't had an awakening experience a specific awakening experience. So this place is exactly suited for that. I've got Sylvia, I've got me, I guess, and I've got this magical house and land, and I've got the float tank and a special meditation room that's just for meditation. So yeah, big stuff. Yeah.
Callie, I'm sorry.
And what also is big, right? So Peter, Ryan, and I, Solution Seeker, I don't know if it's going to be every Friday or every second Friday, but this Friday, we're going to start a discussion forum, I guess, about an instructional video, I guess, as well, about non-conceptuality. So we're going to start with talking about this triune fundamental model of reality on Friday, because I think it'll benefit other people to listen to people who have followed non-conceptuality since 2022. They've both followed non-conceptuality from 2022, and to see how it actually is performing as a tool to lessen suffering and come to the answer and all that stuff, right? So I want to sell the whole package deal. I want to say, listen, here are some people, including me, that this has been unfolding within me for over a decade as well. Here are some people who have been following non-conceptuality and they get it. They've actually done the work and they've delved into it and they understand it. And this is how it's changed their lives. And now these non-conceptualists are going to come here and engage in this retreat that I've developed to have the experience that the theory is pointing to all the time. It's a turnkey system to liberate humanity. That's what it is. All of fucking humanity. Right, guys? All right. Like I said, I'm a part of the package. But it's really the silence, right? It's the people who are here, their ability to engage in the one-step path and to get deeply into Mona. That'll be what the retreat is really all about, right? I can be there as a support, but this is the beginning of the final concluding theory, the successor to science. You guys understand this, right? Like, The only thing that's preventing this from happening is the belief, the disbelief that it possibly could be happening because it's so fucking huge. But it is. You just go back and base it on your own reasoning and just say, yeah, this makes more sense than all the current nonsense that's out there. This actually makes sense and I understand it. Whereas all that other stuff, I'm just taking other people's words for it, right? Okay. Anyway, I don't think he's going to say no. I think this is exactly what he's looking for. And I think this is exactly a perfect place for people to have awakening experiences. Whether it's ripped from their fucking consciousness through salvia, or subtly in the float tank, or through the words that non-conceptuality offers to them, it's going to be an intense ego cleanse for 5 days or 6 days, 5 nights, whatever. People are going to, I guarantee you, every single person that comes here and takes part in this ego cleanse, it'll be a life-changing experience.
Oh, and just the nature.
And the nature too, of course.
You don't have to do anything.
The nature part of it too is just abiding in the analog that is Gaia, right? That it's not digital. We put away the screens here. We put away the phone and we just abide in the senses. Chased by a bear, we have bear spray, and it'll be fine. I was a wildland firefighter walking through the bush for like decades, and I got close to bears and I got scared by bears, but I never got mauled or attacked or chased or anything. Or even threatened. Like, what an to be intimately involved in the greatest revelation in history. I love the irony that there is no history left. It's beautiful. But it really isn't that complicated, is it? Like, it's not something that you need to go to school and learn and hours and hours and hours every day for years and years and years to try to understand. And it's a little bit complicated. Like, people's heads can get spinny, I would imagine, after a while. But eventually, it will come very clear. It could come very clear to everyone with average IQ. What I'm saying. It makes sense. It just makes sense, right?
It's an experience.
For whatever reason, it does seem like there's is that people who haven't had the experience of that stillness and silence that is the self, that which, just that perfect contentment and whatever you want to call it, the space between thoughts. if they're not aware of that, even like most people aren't even aware that that space between thoughts even exists. And those people, they have no chance of seeing what I'm showing them, even though to me, the reasoning, it's based on reasoning itself, but apparently the reasoning isn't enough. You have to have the experience as well. Right. The nothing problem again, right? It's if I'm not doing something, I'm doing nothing, right? But there is no such thing as doing nothing. Doing nothing is being. And being isn't nothing. Being is the potential for all doing. So, yeah.
But it's demonized. The church said idleness is
Right. Yeah.
that.
We try to find it, we try to escape this game by moving faster, but it's actually like you can't escape a screen by going faster on the screen. It's actually stopping. There is no action that can release us from the frame of a movie or a video game. You can't go faster than the speed of light, which is required to get the fuck off of this off of this screen. So the opposite of that is stopping. So that's what we do. We stop moving and we stop thinking. And that complete, and the more still the whole process gets, the more reality we experience, I guess. It just seems like the way to end this game is not by doing anything in the game. It's basically just taking your hands off the fucking remote. And the sim just stands there, right? Like if you didn't play the sim character, I believe that it would just do its basic programming, what it's basically did to stay alive on its own without you doing anything. And I think that's what we need to do. That's enlightenment. When you just stop playing the character and let the natural programming of it just take over. So you're not micromanaging, you're completely, that's letting go and letting God, is just stop playing the fucking game. Just watch the character fulfill its natural programming. Just witness it. I'm witnessing Roy Dobson, the character Roy Dobson, fulfill its natural programming within this simulation game. And my job is to not touch the controls, right? That's the temptation, is like, hey, wouldn't it be fun to be this Roy Dobson guy? And then you go, yeah, it would be. So you jump into Roy Dobson and you start controlling the fucking thing. But that's Maya. That's the trap. So the way to do it is just watch. No, there's no more I thought, because the I thought appears as though, well, I'm taking control of this fucking character and I'm going to start doing stuff in the sim game. But if you don't have those I thoughts, the lack of the arising of these I'm going to ... thoughts, or I am ... thoughts, is the releasing of the playing of that character and just letting it fulfill its normal programming and just watching it fulfill that, not even engaging in it. That's the conclusion. Yeah, it's all fractal, right? That's why we are able to develop these VR things, is because we're just simulating another iteration, a simpler, I guess, probably iteration. But it's so intriguing, right? Like that's it. Is like Maya wants to make it so fucking interesting that you enter and start playing the game. That's it. It's just, look at what I'm doing now. Wouldn't you like to be here and be inside this thing? And the enlightened person says, fuck no, I don't want to anymore. So then Maya just goes, okay. And the whole thing just slows down and then you're done. Is that my Dave or a different Dave? If it's my Dave, he'll know who I'm talking about. Well, if it's the Dave that introduced Peter to me, then through that group, what was that group called? Are you Dave M or Dave something else? Just I don't think it's Dave Millett. Well, welcome, Dave. You've stumbled across the greatest revelation in the history of humanity.
When you say it like that.
Why are you laughing? Paige is laughing at me when I said that.
You're so effervescent.
Well, it's true. This is the greatest revelation in the history of humanity.
I know, but people need to come to that conclusion.
No.
themselves.
No, I'm telling them what it is. I've always got a smile on my face. Right, Paige?
No. Yes.
Oh boy, where do we start? Well, one of them is that this is a creation. There is a transcendent source, and that could be called God if you want, and you are that. So there is a God, you're God. That's the message. And the other message is samsara, basically. The other message is that the number system is a linear expression of a cyclical process, and that cyclical process is actually samsara. So the meaning of numbers is samsara. And we are at the 10, which is the transitionary period into another huge iteration of samsara. It just starts over again. And that mathematics, beginning at quantity, is the incorrect interpretation of the meaning of numbers. So, yeah, all of mathematics is in error. So that's another revelation, is that all of mathematics is in error. Mathematics is that old question, is math discovered or invented? It's invented. The number system has been discovered, and that is a message, and a message that is going through interpretation will appear as having both discovered and invented qualities simultaneously, because the invented part is the shifting of the information contained in the message to develop patterns to try to interpret the message. You asked. So I've resolved the question, is mathematics discovered or invented? Because it's a message that is going under interpretation. And that interpretation is incorrect. The interpretation of addition, or I should say quantity, is actually incorrect. There's no such thing as quantity. It's imagined. Yeah. We've taken the symbol to be the reality instead of just describing the reality in a way. But I'm saying that the symbols 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, ... infinity, those symbols constitute a message, and that message is samsara. The message is human consciousness is in samsara, and it's using symbol itself to try to break consciousness out of the illusion that is produced by language itself. That's why they're in form of a message. And what I'm saying is that the number system, before it was interpreted as quantity, is actually just a replaying, a reminding of samsara. It's the same message that we are in this feedback loop, a self-enforcing positive feedback loop, and that's samsara. And it's even showing us where we are. It's giving us a little bit of a map as well, is because we are the 10, and the 10 is a transitionary period, and that transitionary period will require the extinction of the species. So the 10 is where we are, and we go extinct before we start the next iteration at 1 again. So that's the big revelation, is that the number system is actually the message of samsara. It doesn't mean quantity. And all of mathematics is in error because it's the incorrect interpretation of that message. Because the technology that math creates has us addicted to the screen, has us dependent upon the technology, and is killing all life on the planet. So yes, math is wrong because it develops technology, and that technology is killing all life on the planet. That's basically the whole argument just laid out before you. Good luck. The universe is the universe is a game, a divine game. All experience is a divine game. And the purpose of the game is to just entertain God. It's just for entertainment. All of experience is God's entertainment. And your name here is a character in that game. And so the purpose of the game is for entertainment. And the goal of the game is to conclude the game. So it's like a puzzle. It's like a mystery to solve, a puzzle to complete, a labyrinth to escape. And that is samsara. Leah, yeah. Leela, the game of Leela. Yeah. But I mean this quite literally. It quite literally is a game. There are games because this is a fractal of God's experience. When the observer, this is good, when the observer has a bias, so there's a bias in the observation, and that bias is a word, right? A word is a measurement of type, of a type. When you overlay, when you superimpose language over the realm of the senses, that is what projects the illusion of separateness and multiplicity. So, yeah, so dualism appears out of the singularity when a bias or a judgment or a definition, a language is used. But pure observation without any thoughts, words entering your head, that's pure observation with no bias, and there's no words. So therefore, the unified field of senses is experienced as just that. So there is no appearance of separately existing objects without words entering your consciousness. So free of words is free of bias, and that is the experience of unity, because there's no projection of independently existing objects projected by words. But there is restriction. See, there is, and that's the redundancy. That's where the samsara part comes in, is that it's not just infinite creativity. Infinite creativity requires redundancy. So there's a forgetting in this, right? So that's the suffering, is forgetting that the whole thing is fundamentally unsubstantial. And that's the game, right? So suffering is a reminder of the purpose of the game. If you're suffering, that means you're getting really deep into the game. You're becoming very forgetful of the reality because you're so involved in the game. And humanity is really, really, really deep into the game. And simultaneously very, very, very close to our complete realization, self-realization. So we just need to transcend the voice in the head. Basically, that's how we realize our enlightenment, and not believe in the illusion of separately existing objects. We just transcend the voice in the head. Oh, is that CTMU talk? Is that CTMU talk? Okay. I thought I heard there was some sort of God thing in the CTMU thing. Okay. Yeah, so my triune system, my triune fundamental model of reality, Trimurti creation, global operator descriptor. Okay, that's what it is, global operator descriptor. Yeah, so descriptor, right? So that is the God of creation, because the God of creation, the description using language is what projects the illusion, is creation, but it's illusion. So again, the highest level of divinity is the observer. And the observer is that which experiences reality free from thought. there's only one process going on. If you get awareness is just coming back onto itself. And the frequency at which that happens is the functioning of reality. So there's one fundamental process, is that awareness is coming back onto itself. Well, I would say that consciousness, my model has consciousness just simply aware of something. That's all. The consciousness is just awareness of something. So dreaming, consciousness. Sensing, consciousness. Thinking, consciousness. Dreamless sleep, just awareness. Right? So dreamless sleep is basically awareness, just the awareness. And the waking state is awareness of itself. Yeah. Yeah, the awareness is always there in the sleep state, in the waking state, in the dreaming state. It's important not to get too caught up in the description of reality. And it's more important to experience the reality. Because eventually all of this blah, blah, blah has to lead to the transcendence of the blah, 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 or else you'll just end up blah, blah, blahing all the time and not getting anywhere. Just suffering and talking about stuff. I think the terrain, the apparent terrain, is just the map of another perspective. So our terrain is a map of a higher self. You know what I mean? The terrain and the map are perspectives, because even the terrain is illusion. Dave Millett. I thought it was Millett. Dave Millett was here for a while. Here. The Dave that got Peter introduced to me. From Eastern Canada. It's just Dave. He's kind of funny like Dave Millett. Paige and I seem to be sharing the same mind, if you will. Quite often we say things and the other person is just thinking what the other person is saying what the other person is thinking. We do that a lot. Or I just did something and she asked me to just do the thing that I just did. Stuff like that. There's a level of organization that's going on that's the voice in the head has no volition. It's just trying to provide a narrative after the fact all the time. What's really happening is organization that's occurring at a level deeper than the voice in the head. There's no control going on there. It's just all narrative. Oh, cool. See, this is what's happening simultaneously, right? Is that this 10 is a fork in the road, right? It's either or. Like when there's extinction event, consciousness has to go somewhere, or the story has to continue somehow, or you end up becoming enlightened. So the next evolution, the natural evolutionary step in a higher self-awareness, I believe, is the movement from associating as a species to the association of being a planetary consciousness. So I believe that those who are in communion with Gaia and staying in this analog sensual realm rather than being diverted into the man-made digital realm, those people will evolve into the higher level that is perhaps being a fucking planet. I don't know what that means, but I believe that you would identify as a planet. And the other part, which is where most of humanity is going, human consciousness, is going into the digital realm. Like it's the uploading. It's not exactly uploading your consciousness into the digital realm, the multiverse, the not the multiverse, the freaking the metaverse, right? The fucking digital world, to take itself to be the hardware and software of the system. That's where the vast majority of humanity is headed. It's devolution. It's devolving. So, fork in the road, devolving, evolving naturally, paying attention to the senses and realizing that the body is not the self and that the self is also not the thoughts, or being distracted, your attention into that which man has created, which thought has created, to keep them from advancing in the game. Because this is the game. This is Maya's purpose, is to prevent you from evolving. This is the game you're trapped in. So that's what's happening. And when we go extinct, which it will be within this generation, within 20 fucking years probably, is when there's no more human experience to have, then that consciousness which took self to be human will seek out a similar human experience, and that simulation will be close enough. So consciousness, the awareness will take the digital realm to be reality, and that is what will make it appear as such. So and then the big question will be, well, how does the hardware software system generate consciousness? But it doesn't. Again, it's just like the mind body system does not generate consciousness. Consciousness is coming through that system as the reader of a book gives life to the novel, right? So it's your attention that gives the appearance of something that of the hardware software system sentience. It's not sentient. It's you're just taking yourself to be the hardware software of the system, just like your ego currently is taking in itself to be the mind body system. But it's the same spirit. Don't you want to be a friggin' planet? I think it's either, that's the choice, is either you become a planet or you become fully enlightened, or maybe you become another species on another planet. I don't know. I'm just saying human species is done. That's what I'm saying. So you better have another alternative, because if you don't know that there's another alternative and that you're certain that it's either you're going to be a human or nothing, then you'll seek out something that looks like a human again, like is close enough to a human experience that you'll say, yeah, I'm going to have that, even though it's a lesser experience. Well, so think of it. What if this computer system, this hardware, software, supercomputer, Elon shot it off into space, and it orbits the sun and just harvests the solar energy from the sun for billions of years. So you're in this fucking simulation, this video game basically, but you don't know it's a video game. You think it's as real as the sensual experience that you just had as a human. No, this is bad. This is going the wrong way, people. Planet Elon. Thanks, Peter. We'll see you Friday, man. I'm looking forward to Friday's discussion. But But wouldn't you say that the interior of our body, like the cellular system that exchanges, that runs on breath, right? So every breath is an iteration of samsara, right? So the cells, let's say the cellular iteration realm, it has a completely different time frame, because if you think of it, there's what, trillions of cells in the body, and every breath takes a few seconds. So how can trillions of cells in the body exchange all that oxygen and get a flush, basically have an increte and a whole iteration of of one day of cellular activity is one breath, right? So one, you see what I mean, is that there's time scales on each one of these different levels, these realms. And we shouldn't even have knowledge of these realms, because the knowledge of these realms is brought to us through technology. So again, it's all diversion. That's, I think we're looking into our past. We're devolving. We should have never started. Well, again, this never thing, but we took the path that leads to deeper delusion. We took the path of just simulation built on simulation built on simulation built on simulation. We're just keeping doubling down, trying to make that which is unreal real by just putting more unrealness onto it. The one step path. Once you've realized Mona, or your true nature, or the Sat Chit Ananda that's there all the time, it doesn't matter where you are, you'll always have that one step back. You know that it doesn't take a process to get back to your natural state. You just let go. You just immediately are able to let go, not do anything, doing things, and therefore just rest back into your natural state, which is perfect contentment. But the deprogramming process can be very lengthy and difficult. But once you've fully deprogrammed, you don't need to go through those steps anymore. You can just immediately go, oh, I know the whole thing's bullshit. Right? You know immediately, you recognize that this is all illusion. All this shit that's going on in my head is just make-believe, fanciful Maya. And then you just drop it immediately. But the deprogramming might be lengthy, because the programming is very deep. It gets very convoluted, and it's just a bunch of belief systems wrapped up on each other and built upon each other, with one assumption at the front, one incorrect assumption that all of it's built upon. Rehypothecation. Everything's built on one incorrect assumption. And that's back to the nothing thing model thing again. It's just all a Ponzi. Okay, I'm calling it because there's more football to watch today. So next Friday, Peter, Solution Seeker, and I are going to have one of these deep discussions, specifically about, I believe, the fundamental model of reality part of non-conceptuality. So I'll probably list it on Saturday, but I think that we'll have a pretty interesting conversation, and people can get someone else's perspective other than just mine. So we can see how other people are getting this as well. And it's just not me that understands this shit. Other people do too now. So we're going to have a maybe pretty enlightening talk, and maybe we can shed some different perspectives on this fundamental model of reality, how it came about, what it means, why people can't freaking see it, a whole bunch of stuff like that, how it fixes everything and nothing. All right, that's enough. We'll see you, Peter and Solution Seeker, on Friday, and I'll see the rest of you probably next Sunday. Peace out.